I wanted to talk about women in the Bible, some of the mentions, because it seems as if once the church was more organized a few hundred years later, they pushed women out of the church when Jesus had women participating along the way. So here are some quick examples. 2 John 1:1, to the elder to the lady chosen by God, to her children, whom I love in the truth, and not only I, but also all who know the truth. I'm writing to the chosen lady and her children. So some woman who was a chosen woman was an elder in the church, it says. Philippians 4:2, I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. So Paul's writing to some more women. Verse 3, yes, and I ask you, my true companion, help these women, since they have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers, whose names are in the book of life. So women were ministering with Paul. They were co-workers, he says. They have contended at his side, he says. Next we have Romans 16:3. Romans 16:3 greets Priscilla and Aquila, my co-workers in Jesus Christ, women who were co-workers with Paul in the ministry. Philippians 4:3 we saw. Philemon 1:2, also to Apphia, our sister, and Archippus, our fellow soldier, and to the church that meets in your home. So this woman and her husband, I'm presuming, have a church meeting in their home. Romans 16:6, greet Mary, who worked very hard for your benefit for you. Greet Andronicus and Junia in Romans 16:7. Junia is a female name. My fellow Jews who have been in prison with me. So they are outstanding among the apostles, and they were in Christ before I was. Again, greet Andronicus and Junia, my fellow Jews who have been in prison with me. They are outstanding among apostles, and they were in Christ before I was. Next we have 1 Corinthians 16:19, the churches in the province of Asia send you greetings. Aquila and Priscilla greet you warmly in the Lord, and so does the church that meets in their house. And 2 Timothy 1:5, I'm reminded in your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded now lives in you also. So for this reason, I continue to for 2 Timothy 1:6, for this reason I remind you to fan into the flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. Women were included in the ministry. Women were healed. Women were ministered to. And they were an important part of Christ's ministry. And I believe Christ was doing something very unheard of at the time. Again, if we look at Afghanistan today, we might get a small idea of, I guess you could say, how sexist we were in those days, where women were second class, and then there were slaves. Then there were slave women who were even treated worse than just a male slave. So Jesus was giving the ministry to everyone, not to just some classes or some genders, and he was including everyone. We're seeing advertisements now, even in the Super Bowl, that Jesus was for minorities and for women and for everybody, and wanted equality and love and compassion and goodness and truth. So I know this is a very long video, but I personally just started to feel it was important to mention these things I was seeing as I go back and reread the Bible continually. Women were indeed a very important part, and it's not saying they were better than men or men were better than them, but they were intentionally placed in the Bible, these verses, so that we could see that women were an integral part and should remain an integral part of God's message and God's gospel.